big of a problem are these type of hits in the NFL?
Well, I think it's a huge problem. We obviously know that because the concussion issue is well documented. You've got former players that have lamented this state of affairs. You've got possibly billions of dollars that are lying in wait in terms of potential lawsuits coming down the pike. These are all things that the NFL have been concerned about. And then when you see what the kind of football that you saw last night, which is primarily them against the Bengals, because as Big Ben Roethlisberger pointed out, when we play against the Ravens, it's just good, hard-nosed AFC North football. But against the Bengals, it's obviously something different. There's a lot of bad blood between these teams, and they just go after each other in a way that's illegal, to be kind. So when you look at it from that perspective, if you're the National Football League, this is the poster child for justification as it pertains to why you are the way you are with these stringent rules that are coming down the pike, or that have been around, rather, for quite some time, because you're looking at how these guys play on the field. You're looking at the damage that they can inflict upon one another, and it elevates your level of concern. And to see Juju Smith-Schuster standing over Vontaze Burfict, knowing that it was a helmet-to-helmet shot that you registered, that's a problem. When you see Laoka and the hit that he put on Antonio Brown, I thought that was even worse. And that was after the Vontaze Burfict hit. That was after Shazier went down, even though there was nothing illegal about that. But to see these injuries scattered all over the field, and Laoka could still put that hit on Antonio Brown in the end zone, it just shows how out of control some guys get at times, and how it's necessary for the NFL to bring the heavy hammer down when necessary.
It's a huge problem, because when you start to list, here in order of importance, the issues facing the NFL, structural issues going forward that could marginalize professional football in America. Domestic violence is an enormous issue in our country culturally, and off the field issues, it is attached to NFL players and therefore the league. That is the case. It is also the case that the protests of police brutality and the kind of blowback from those who don't want to see the protests is a big issue for the NFL right now, and a huge issue for us culturally. That's the case. But in terms of what issues will have the greatest impact on the NFL now and going forward that they're going to have to address, I'd say number 2 is opioid use, and that's also a cultural issue. And number 1 is the violence. That is the number 1 issue, the concussions, the physical problems after the player's career, just the violence on the screen that parents aren't going to want to let their little kids watch. And some of that violence is necessary to the sport. It is part of the kind of, it's elemental in the sport. If you want to stop someone from forward progress, you got to hit them sometimes. And there's no way really around that. And you try to structure the rules in a way that contains that violence as much as possible, recognizing it is a violent game. But certainly the extracurricular violence, the violence that is not necessary to the play on the field, that has to be addressed immediately and severely. Like, the punishments have to be real and hard and fast right now, and the players need to reckon with it themselves. It will affect their bottom line eventually. They have to be good to each other. All of that. It's the number 1 issue facing the NFL, and the Bengals especially are one of the major culprits, particularly when they get together with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The worst parts of NFL violence are on display, and in this case, on a Monday night football game, nationally televised, high-profile rivalry game. The damage from this game is serious.
Yeah, there's no question that right now the league is probably convening in New York and saying, look, how do we get this message across to the players that it's not just our responsibility, but it's your responsibility as well to start playing the game differently in the manner such that we have basically put into effect here, as far as eliminating headshots, eliminating unnecessary headshots, and putting other players at risk. Look, I grew up in an era, and I played in an era where hits like last night were commonplace, okay? And it was something that was not frowned upon. It was something that was accepted. It was something that never drew 15-yard penalties. It was something that never drew fines. And even for me, for someone whose heroes were guys like Ronnie Lott, Jack Tatum, Dennis Smith, Kenny Easley, some of the hardest hitters, most vicious hitters in the league, I understand the landscape that we're dealing with. I understand the dollars that are at stake here for the league in terms of lawsuits. I understand the optics of it as far as fans being turned off if they continue to see uncontrolled violence in the manner in which they saw last night, although I kind of sometimes hedge on saying uncontrolled because I understand how fast the game is played, and I understand how sometimes it's just an honest mistake that sometimes players wind up missing their target. So I understand all this, and I definitely understand the long-term physical effects of taking headshots. Look, I have 3 fused vertebrae in my neck right now that are without a doubt the result of the long-term effects of playing the game above the shoulder pads the way I played it. I know that they are. I know the risks. And I have come around to the fact that, look, we need to change the way we approach the game. The league is trying to get this through the players. You're right, Max. They are going to have to lay down some heavy fines and or suspensions in order to get this point across, because the only way you really get players' attention is to take away the stage. Fines don't get players' attention like you think they do. Taking away the stage, taking away the ability to perform and be an entertainer is what gets their attention.